Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Hope that you're all getting ready for Thanksgiving. I know I'm excited for it. It's one of my favorite holidays. So much good food and spending time with family, and I feel like it's less stressful than Christmas because you don't have to buy presents and stuff. So I'm definitely excited. Hope you're all getting ready for it. I also like the premise behind it too, feeling thankful and just practicing gratitude and remembering what you're thankful for. So anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Susie Leachy. I'm a certified health coach specializing in women's reproductive health, and I help women naturally balance their hormones using nutrition and lifestyle. So today I wanted to kind of get back to the basics and talk about the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. Now, it can also be split up into 2 main phases, but I'll kind of get into that later, 2 or 4 phases. And I'll talk about how the hormones fluctuate throughout your cycle, and also how you might feel during different parts of your cycle. And I think this is really important because as women, I think it's really important for us to understand our bodies. And I know personally, I knew the overview from school. Obviously, we all have had that education health class. And, obviously I had my own experience as a woman, but I didn't know a lot of these details that I'm going to get into today until I wanted to get pregnant and until something was wrong. So I would like for all women to be aware of what a healthy cycle looks like so that they can know if what they're experiencing is normal and if they need some help. Maybe they have some type of hormonal imbalance, or, if not, it's just really good to know what's going on, because then if there are certain fluctuations or changes, you can kind of trace it back and figure out what might be going on in your health or in your life. Because the menstrual cycle is, a lot of people refer to it as a vital sign, really, because it is, and it's kind of like your monthly report card. It shows, what may have gone on for you during the month. It's very reflective of your health and your life overall. So, like I said, it's just good to know what's healthy and what's normal, and then it's easier to identify if something is off or if you may have a hormonal imbalance. So as I go through, if you have any questions, just let me know, or if you catch the replay and you have questions at that point, let me know. Either leave a comment or you can send me a message and I'll be happy to get back to you. So first, I just want to kind of set the stage. So in a healthy menstrual cycle, it's about 25 to 35 days long. And that should be somewhat consistent month to month for each individual woman. So if normally your cycle is about 25 days, it shouldn't be then 35 days the next cycle, and then 27, and then 25 again, and then 35. It should be relatively consistent, give or take a day or two. And there are also, as I mentioned, there are kind of 2 but also 4 phases of the menstrual cycle because there's an overlap. So the two phases of the menstrual cycle are the follicular phase, that's the first half, and then the luteal phase is the second half. But within those phases, there's also the menstrual phase and the ovulation phase. So basically, the menstrual phase starts day 1 of your cycle, and it's about 3 to 7 days on average. The follicular phase also starts day 1, and that's about 13 to 16 days on average, so that there's an overlap there. And then the ovulation phase, that's in the middle of your cycle, around day 14 on average. For most women, it's not exactly day 14, but that's kind of the average. And that only lasts about 24 hours. And then right after ovulation starts the luteal phase. So that's, like I said, kind of the second phase if you break it up into just those 2 phases, follicular and luteal. So that starts, again, right after ovulation, which ovulation's only about a day. And that'll be, again, assuming just kind of the average 28-day cycle, ovulating on day 14. The luteal phase would begin on day 15 and last anywhere from about 11 to 17 days, but about 14 days on average. So let's get into these 4 phases in more detail now. So the menstrual phase, as I'm sure we all know, that's when the uterine lining is shed and you get your period. And day 1 of this phase, which again is also day 1 of the follicular phase, is the first day of your period, but it's the first day of real flow, not just spotting, if you happen to have some spotting before your period. And during this phase, your hormone levels, mainly estrogen and progesterone, are pretty low at this point. So they were high to support a pregnancy if an egg were to be fertilized, but then they drop off when the egg is not fertilized, which causes you to shed your uterine lining and get ready for the next cycle. Now, some women may experience symptoms right before or during the menstrual phase, such as cramps, bloating, digestive distress, breast tenderness, mood swings, irritability, headaches or migraines, which I personally experience, unfortunately, fatigue, lower back pain, kind of the typical PMS type symptoms. Now, some of these symptoms, especially if they're very mild, can be normal just due to the normal hormonal fluctuations. But it is important to note that if they're severe or interfering with your daily life, then it's likely that you have some type of hormonal imbalance and or inflammation going on that you may want to work on. So I feel like we're kind of led to believe that all these symptoms are normal and, everyone has PMS. And like I said, to an extent, yes, some of these mild symptoms are just the normal result of your hormones fluctuating throughout the cycle, but they really shouldn't be severe. If they are, there's probably something going on that you may want to look into. Okay, so moving on, we'll discuss the follicular phase. So again, this is going to start exactly the same time that the menstrual phase starts, day 1. Now, during this phase, the hypothalamus, which is part of your brain, sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which is a small gland located at the base of your brain, to release what's called follicle stimulating hormone, also known as FSH for short. And FSH stimulates your body to produce around 5 to 20 small sacs called follicles, and each of those follicles contains an immature egg. And during this phase, the egg contained inside the follicles starts to mature and grow. Hence, the follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the eggs to mature and grow. And while the eggs mature, their follicles set off a surge of estrogen that causes the lining of the uterus to thicken. And that uterine lining, you may also hear it referred to as endometrium or endometrial lining, but same thing as uterine lining. And that increase in estrogen creates a nutrient-rich environment for the embryo to grow in should you get pregnant. And only the healthiest egg is going to fully mature, so there will typically just be one dominant follicle. So it's kind of almost like a race to see which of the follicles ends up being the dominant one, but it's usually the healthiest one that will become the dominant follicle. And the rest, so I guess backing up a bit, usually it's one dominant follicle, but of course there are rare occasions where 2 or even 3 could be dominant, and that's obviously how you get, twins or multiples. So the rest of the follicles that aren't the dominant follicle end up just getting reabsorbed into your body. And during this phase of your cycle, you'll likely feel pretty good and have pretty good energy and also clear skin due to higher estrogen levels. So those are kind of some of the benefits of estrogen. And if you happen to be tracking your basal body temperature, which I want to do a video maybe next week on the basics of cycle tracking using basal body temperature and cervical fluid. So I'll kind of get into more of those in an upcoming video. But for now, just know that during this phase, your basal body temperature will be lower. You'll also be more insulin sensitive, which is interesting during this phase. So the higher estrogen levels actually make you more insulin sensitive. And because of that, because of your greater insulin sensitivity and because you have more energy, it's actually a better time in your cycle to do more intense exercise, such as, if you want to do things like sprint work or intervals or strength training. If you're into those kinds of things, it's better to do it during the follicular phase actually of your cycle. You'll get better results, and it'll seem easier too, because you just have more energy and you're more insulin sensitive. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting fact to note. Then let's move on to the ovulation phase. So once estrogen levels get high enough, that triggers your pituitary gland to release what's called luteinizing hormone, or LH. And that's what starts the process of ovulation, which again happens around day 14 in a healthy cycle. You know, it doesn't have to be exactly day 14, but somewhere around there. So when LH gets high enough, the dominant follicle will burst open and your ovary will release the mature egg, and the egg will travel down the fallopian tube where it may or may not be fertilized by sperm, if there are any sperm there. And just as a side note, ovulation predictor kits, if you've ever used those to track your cycle or if you're trying to conceive, they're also called OPKs, that's the acronym, but they're detecting that hormone, that luteinizing hormone. So they're trying to see, when you use ovulation predictor kits, there are these little strips and there's a line that you're looking to get darker and darker, essentially. So when that line's getting darker, it's showing the increase in LH. So when it gets to a certain level, it's likely that you will ovulate within the next 24 to 48 hours. So that's kind of how those kits work, or those strips. So after about a day, if the egg is not fertilized, it will just dissolve. And also just want to note that during the ovulation phase, you know, as far as just symptoms and, you know, knowing what's going on in your body, it's possible you may feel a twinge in your ovary during ovulation, or some mild cramping, or your libido might be higher because, you know, your body wants you to get pregnant. But some women don't notice a change at all. But, you know, if you're really attuned to it, and depending on your body, you may experience those symptoms and know kind of when you're ovulating. Okay, so next is the luteal phase. So again, this is the second half of your cycle, and ovulation is just a day that's kind of in the middle of everything. So the luteal phase starts the day after ovulation. So again, in a kind of average 28-day cycle, ovulating on day 14, it would start day 15. So after the follicle releases the egg, it changes into what's called the corpus luteum. So that's where luteal phase gets its name. And the corpus luteum releases a lot of progesterone and also some estrogen. And those hormones help to keep your uterine lining thick and ready for a fertilized egg to potentially implant. Now, if you do end up getting pregnant, if the egg is fertilized, your body will start to produce what's called human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG. And that's the hormone that pregnancy tests are detecting. If you don't get pregnant, the corpus luteum will shrink away and get reabsorbed into your body. And if that happens, then that triggers a decline in estrogen and progesterone. And once those hormones become low enough, that causes your uterine lining to shed, and then the whole process starts all over again. So onset of your period, again, cycle day 1, follicular phase. So during this phase, the rise in progesterone causes your basal body temperature to rise, which, as I talked about before, I'll kind of go into more detail about basal body temperature and cervical fluid when I do a video on cycle tracking, but just kind of to note right now that your basal body temperature will be higher. Right after ovulation, you'll see it go up. And progesterone also has a calming effect on the body. So you likely will feel less energetic than the follicular phase, where estrogen was the dominant hormone, and possibly more introspective too. So you may see those kind of energy and mood fluctuations throughout your cycle. Progesterone, interestingly enough, also makes you less insulin sensitive. So whereas estrogen makes you more insulin sensitive, progesterone makes you less insulin sensitive. So you may actually find that you have more blood sugar swings during the second half of your cycle, or during the luteal phase, when progesterone is the dominant hormone. So that's kind of just interesting thing to note. So because of the lower energy levels that are typical and you're less insulin sensitive, it's a better time in your cycle as far as exercise is concerned to do more low impact or moderate exercise like yoga, walking, or riding your bike. Your body will be happy with those activities, and you know, you'll kind of have since you have lower energy levels, that'll kind of, suit you better during that time of your cycle. So that's kind of the basic overview of the menstrual cycle and the four or two main phases, but four more detailed phases, and with the overlap, as I mentioned. If you have any questions, please let me know. Like I said, if you catch the replay and have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Either leave a comment or send me a message if you don't want it to be public, and I'll be happy to answer and get back to you. So I also have a private Facebook group. It's called Hormone Balancing, Fertility, and Beyond. So if you're interested in this type of content and you're not already a member of that group, I'd be happy to have you join us there. It's a really great group of women. It's very supportive, non-judgmental, and I share a lot of information about women's health in there. I'll post a link to that group in the comments if you're interested in requesting to join. And also, if you've liked this page and you want to continue seeing the content that I post, you can add Health Equilibrium by Susie Leachy in your newsfeed under Prioritize Who to See First, so you don't miss a post or video. And I also have a free guide on my website with my top 5 tips for hormonal health. I'll post a link to that. It's on the homepage of my website, so basically you just put in your name and email and you'll get access to that free guide. It's, again, my top tips, so a great place just to get started if you're interested. And if you do want support and someone to guide you in naturally balancing your hormones, or learning more about your cycle, or cycle tracking, which again I'll talk about more in an upcoming video, or preconception planning and fertility, which I love helping women with, or if you're already pregnant and you just want to feel good and have the healthiest pregnancy that you can, I offer free consultations. So it's no pressure, no commitment. If you just want to hop on the phone with me for a half an hour and we can chat to see if it would be a good fit, working together. And I'm just really, really passionate about helping other women understand their bodies and getting their hormones healthy so that they can feel their best, or overcome conditions such as PCOS or hypothalamic amenorrhea, which I've suffered with both of them, or endometriosis, and also to boost fertility, because I think that's important. Whether you're trying to get pregnant or not, having a healthy, fertile cycle just is really important to overall health, and it makes us really feel our best. I worked with a coach personally when I was trying to get pregnant, having issues with my cycle. I actually didn't have a cycle for a number of years, and then once it returned, it was very irregular, and I had a number of different things going on, and it was tough trying to figure everything out on my own. And I got there part of the way on my own and through doing my own research and experimenting, but it wasn't until I worked with a coach that things really started to come together for me, and I just needed that support and outside perspective. So that's why I became a coach myself, because I really see the value in it, and it's helped me a lot. And actually, I'm currently still working with a coach, not the same one that I worked with to get pregnant, but a coach who works primarily with new moms. And I've been working with her since my son was about 3 months old. He's now 8 months old. And that's also been really, really life-changing and valuable for me. So actually, I hear my son right now, waking up from his nap. So that's why I'm really passionate about helping other women and coaching, because it's helped me so much in my life. So I'll put a link to sign up for a free consultation with me in the comments if you're interested. And also feel free, if you know someone who could benefit from this, or benefit from working with a coach, or benefit from the information that I'm sharing, feel free to share this video or my contact information. And lastly, if there's a topic or question you'd like me to cover in an upcoming video, please let me know. I'm open to suggestions, and I'm happy to talk about what you are interested in or have questions about. So that's all. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.